Hi, everyone. I'm Rejoice on Umatta Consultant Podcast. If today's your first time tuning in on our show, please make sure you subscribe to all of our social media channels, especially Spotify. So today we have a special privilege of speaking with Courtney. Courtney is the managing partner at BroadBranch Advisors. I'd love for her to say something before we get right into the questions. Or she can also add with our first question of the day. Can you share a bit about your background, Courtney, and what led you to Broad Branch Advisors?
Absolutely. Firstly, just wanted to say thank you so much, Rejoice, for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here. As she said, my name is Courtney Matson. I'm the managing partner here at BroadBranch Advisors. We are a boutique strategy consulting firm. We support strategy, competitive intelligence, VOC, inorganic growth, organic growth, anything that sort of clients need as they look at their growth trajectory. So that's a little bit about us. Background, what a great question. Okay, so my background is really interesting. I came to this firm about 8 years ago, but prior to that, I was actually in the Foreign Service working for USAID. I feel like I have to say something there. Pause. Given the fact that USAID really doesn't exist anymore. So just kind of a moment to recognize the incredible work of the U.S. Agency for International Development. I was there for a decade. So prior to coming to BroadBranch, my focus was on country level strategy, supporting the development initiatives of the U.S. government as they looked at kind of support for developing countries. So I worked in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Indonesia, Philippines, Colombia, Brazil, India. But the thread really running through all of this was strategy, supporting kind of the strategic objectives at a country level for how countries built their development goals, women's empowerment, education, economic mobility. And when I came to BroadBranch, it's kind of a funny story. Is it okay if I share that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Love to hear it.
So sort of the funny story is I was working at USAID, pregnant with my second daughter about 8 years ago. And I was speaking on a panel for my alma mater, Middlebury College. And I was representing careers in the Foreign Service. Another gentleman next to me was representing careers in consulting. His name was John Hedden, and he was one of the founders and the managing partner of BroadBranch Advisors. And we spoke on this panel for young alumni who were looking for jobs in sort of their next space as they graduated school. And we had a friendly banter. We were on the panel back and forth. And afterwards, we were chatting, disagreed about almost everything. And at the end of the conversation, he said, you should really work in consulting. You've got the mind of a consultant. I said, what are you talking about? I have a job I can't get fired from, right? Famous. Haha, now that we know what we know. But over the course of the next 6 months or so, he really sat down with me and explained a little bit about what consulting was, what it meant to work at a small boutique firm, kind of the types of challenges we solve and tackle. And I was so compelled by that mission. I said, I think I can apply some of my strategy skills in this context. And I really want to get a better sense of kind of the corporate and commercial world. I had no exposure to that to date. So over the course of those next 6 months, he was able to convince me to take this huge leap to go from, the largest employer, the US government, to this tiny little, I think it was 8 people at the time. My family thought I was crazy. My husband thought I was crazy. My parents thought I was crazy. But I did it. And I haven't taken a look back since. It's just been one of the most incredible experiences of my life.
Wow, Courtney, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I love the global exposure that you've had. I could tell as you were speaking how exciting that experience must have been. And I also love the fact that you were willing to take a leap of faith, to jump into something that is unknown. Now, going along with that, can you tell us a little bit, now that you have assumed full ownership, what does this transition mean to you on a personal and professional level?
Yeah. So just taking a step back for a moment, I joined this company almost 8 years ago, and 2.5 years ago, I took over as the managing partner for John Hedden, who was our previous managing partner. But over the course of the last 6 months, we've gone through a managed buyout, which means that the management team took full ownership of the company from the founders. This was a huge deal for me. First time I'd ever bought a company. certainly, we help companies with lots of deal related transaction support, but I'd never actually bought a company before. And it was a huge process. So about a month ago, we assumed full ownership of the company, myself and three other partners. And now we fully own it. But in terms of kind of what that means for me personally and professionally, I think it's sort of about aligning the incentives and structures of the firm with the people who are actively involved in the business and the hard work that they're putting in. And I'll probably end up saying this 100 times over the course of the next 30 minutes in this podcast, but it's really about the people, right? And I think when you focus on people and when you take a really human-centered approach to business and leadership and ownership, you kind of say to yourself, it's about the people. We don't make anything. We don't have widgets. We don't have physical products that we create. So people are our most important asset. And our people walk out of the proverbial, because we're mostly a virtual firm, but they walk out the door at the end of every day. And I hope to God that they walk back in the next morning. And so the way to do that is really focus on them, their growth, their development, their professional exposure. And that's really the focus here. And that's why we bought the business.
Makes sense. Makes sense. The whole human-centered approach is definitely a rewarding experience. You see a lot of results coming out that approach. So thank you for sharing some light to this approach that you have. What inspired the original vision behind BroadBranch 20 years ago? And now the vision, has it evolved over time?
Sure, great question. So, our firm was actually visioned out of the law enforcement and intelligence communities. The idea that insights and intelligence can yield better results, more pinpointed perspectives. That's really what we do. So, our firm focuses on saying, what are the external perspectives that our clients need in order to make meaningful decisions in their business goals? If they're trying to build their way into a space, what perspectives do they need? If they're trying to buy their way into a space, right? Acquisition, M&A, what
Okay.
perspectives do they need? If they're trying to grow their portfolio or understand how a market is shifting and evolving. And again, kind of going back to what I just shared, that revolves around people. People run businesses. Even if you make products or you're a manufacturer or, whatever it is you're doing, those businesses are built out of people. And so our kind of philosophy is that we go out and we talk to people who matter in this space. What is it that your customers are doing and saying about the products that you're offering? What are
Hmm.
your competitors doing? What are they saying about, the competition? What is the market landscape doing, right? So much focus now on AI, right? How is AI changing the landscape of the way different industries work and behave? And what sorts of, capabilities can we build from the influx of AI? But also, what does that mean for how our dynamics are shifting and changing? And so that kind of focus on the intelligence gathering, right? Gaining those perspectives really is a person to person approach. And that's really what our firm has founded out of. We focus on qualitative interviews that glean insights. We can do lots of quantitative analysis around that. We can do hypothesis testing. We can do, so much perspective around pricing and strategy and growth
Hmm.
models. But it's really all around kind of what is it that you need to understand? And so often when I talk to our customers, I say, what is it that you wish you could know about your external environment? What is it? What corner do you wish you could see
Hmm.
so that you can actually make strong decisions? And we focus on helping them see around those corners by talking to the people that they can't necessarily talk to themselves because of who they are and where they sit.
The variety of the options of trying to come up with a storyline behind the customer and their customers and so forth. I wonder, at times, do you sort of like figure out what strategy will work best, or do you give them all of the options? Because I
Yeah.
mean, too many options can scare people, right?
And look, we work across a wide variety of sectors. I don't like to call us industry agnostic because that makes it feel like we don't do anything well. But,
Yes.
our focus is really on what are the strategic
Hmm.
decisions and questions that our clients are asking. And then we go out and say, who are the people who can truly answer those questions?
Hmm.
So you don't call me because I know the answers to all of your biggest questions, right? You call me and say, here's what we're struggling with. And then we say, okay, who are the people who can help us answer those questions? And we go out and talk to those people, double blinded, which is really important here. right? So, but we'll double blind talk to people about kind of what's going on in a space. And then, it's about saying, how do we then knit together the perspectives of all of these different parties, competitors, customers, other industry stakeholders, so that our client gets a holistic view of kind of what is that big picture? What is the market saying? And how do they then take those insights and kind of build their strategy around that?
Wow, makes sense. I like that. I like your approach a lot. Can you share a story where Broad Branch helped a client through a particularly complex or high stake challenge?
Gosh, I have more of these than I think we could. um, that's always the case, right? First, I'll just say no client is coming to us because they have a really easy problem where they're sort of like, okay, great, let's just, go out and ask some easy questions. They come to us with those sticky wicket questions, which are sort of like, we have done all of this research. We have spoken to people. We've already done our homework and we can't figure out this one thing. Right. So that's when they come to us first and foremost. But let's see, if I had to think through a recent example. Okay. We recently did a project with a client where they were looking at what market opportunities existed for them. They had a technology that they were wanting to kind of put into the market. And it was probably about halfway through the project when it was very clear that they were in a losing situation. Their technology was not differentiated. They were in a competitive market and they had way overinvested in the space. So we had to give them some pretty tough news, right?
Yes.
And it wasn't easy. It wasn't fun. But I think the key is to stay honest and open to the client, working with them from a place of compassion, but also candor. And I think that's kind of the thread that weaves through all of this that I've been saying now.
Right.
It's that human-centered approach, right? At the end of the day, you're hiring an external third party because you need some perspective that you can't get yourself. And it's not always going to be good news, right? Just like you're not always going to be in a situation where this is the right thing at the right time for the right people. But I think being able to stay open to kind of, here's what the market is telling you, and this is what it means for how you have to focus or hone your efforts. And in some cases, bad news is better than good news because it means you say, okay, maybe this isn't the right technology. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and say, what are the things that really can deliver a better outcome for our clients? And I think when you stay human-centered, as I said, it's not about kind of delivering only things that people want. It's about saying, it doesn't take more resources or more time to take that human-centered approach. It's about focusing on the people and saying, here's where your opportunity is. Here's where your opportunity isn't. You might need to go back to the drawing board, but ultimately, here's the things you need to focus on. You need to be differentiated in order to compete in this market, or you need to be more customer centric because everyone's doing these things. And, this is a services business. So maybe you need to focus more on the services than the products. But I think ultimately it delivers a better outcome. And, one thing I think I've learned over the last 8 years working in consulting is, we're driving customers and clients to be better, to do more, to grow, certainly to generate more revenue. But when you take that human-centered approach, it's about the people. And so we're saying, how do we drive growth? For example, we do a lot of work in the healthcare and life sciences space, right? Lots of money being spent in these industries. But at the end of the day, it's about saying, in life sciences, for example, how do you bring life-saving drugs to market quicker, to save more lives? In healthcare, how do you kind of deliver more value to your end customers? And so kind of taking that step back, sometimes it's easy to get into the weeds of anything that you're doing and being like, okay, it's about, these perspectives and these competitors, et cetera. But when I take a step back, it's what really energizes me because it's about saying, what is it that we're delivering for people? How does this help them go to market faster? How does it help get these drugs into market? How does it help save costs or save lives?
Amazing, amazing. And I love that it's measurable too. So you can actually show them through your metrics. This is what's happening with your decisions. I also love what you said about honesty. Being honest with your clients, especially nowadays, people want to do business with people who feel like they share common core values.
What a
And
good statement. Yeah. You know what's one other thing too that I've noticed, and Rejoice, we met through an event at Chief, which I was so excited about.
yeah,
But you realize that human connection is what brings people together.
very
It's
true.
not necessarily just kind of the business aspect of it. And so, kind of maintaining that connection through kind of the things that ignite and energize people really matters.
Amazing. Love that. I love that. I hope that's one of your core values because that sounds amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. What qualities, going along with, the human connection, what qualities do you look for when bringing new talent into Broad Branch?
Oh, I love a talent question. Okay, this is this is one of our core values too. We have a robust and rigorous hiring process that we actually inherited from our founders. So, John Hedden, Matt Polak, our founders, kind of built out a process to hire people that is quite rigorous. There's a series of testing, there's interviews, there's a case study. And the point is that it really allows us to focus on having no false positives, right? So
Mm,
if you can do the work, the testing kind of supports that. It's all pass fail, but it is sort of a testing process. And then we say, these people can all do the work. So then how do we align our people with the culture that our firm is
mhm,
really trying to drive? And so we've adapted and tweaked that process to meet the needs of our current firm. But I think at the heart of it, it's really about where is their real curiosity,
mm,
real creativity, and a drive to problem solve. Because at the end of the day, that's really what we do. So we kind of take that testing model. We say, can you creatively solve some of these problems? What are the ways in which you think about solving problems? And then how do you kind of move into other spaces? So let's say you hit a wall with,
mhm.
you know, one project or one avenue. What are the other ways that you can move through that? And I was recently at an event, and a woman was talking about the agility quotient, right? I think you might remember this.
Yes.
IQ to EQ, right? From intelligence to from regular, cranial intelligence to emotional intelligence, and then from emotional intelligence to what she called AQ, which is agility, right? The ability to sort of pivot and recalibrate and be nimble and flexible. That's something that's really stuck with me over the last few
Mm,
weeks since I've heard that. And it resonates now, I think, especially as you look at the talent pool that's out there. There's so
very
many incredibly talented, smart people, so many people looking for new jobs. And so for me, it's about where is that creativity, that drive, that interest in problem solving, but also where is that nimbleness, that agility to be able to say, how can I solve this problem in a different way? Here's an example. Go forth and conquer. Now try solving it a different way. And can you also solve the problem in a new way? And I think that's what today's market really requires,
Mhm,
that ability to be able to be nimble, to pivot. And I think that's something that we haven't seen in the job market
mhm,
previously. My parents, as an example, both came from single single career people, right? They were in their industries for 40 years each. That was what defined them. That's it. Now we see, millennials and Gen Z and even my children who are young, but their generation will probably grow up having multiple careers, right? And dozens of jobs over the period of their careers. And their careers are lasting longer. So I think it's about saying, how do you apply the things that you've learned, the things that are interesting to you, and then put them in new spaces. And I think that is an example, certainly for me, as a person who came from, the development space and pivoted into a corporate and commercial world, which
mhm.
with a totally different set of stakeholders and customers, and kind of say what are the things that really drive the thread of what I know how to do into kind of what I can do here. And again, for me, that was strategy. But needing to be nimble and recalibrate is really important now.
I love that, Courtney. I love that the types of people you look for are similar to what you do for your customers. That's what I got from you. You're problem solving for clients all day. So you want people to also have that sort of quality. Amazing. I truly do think that is beautiful. And another thing you said that resonated with me well was the idea of people pivoting into different careers before they land a different opportunity and so forth. It sort of opens doors for more creativity. Being in different industries, different environments, you sort of see different things that you can bring to the table. So thank you for highlighting those qualities.
What's interesting too, also, Rejoice, that you just shared is, I think about myself and I'm sort of in mid-career mode.
Yes.
But the ability to pivot and move into another career or two more careers or three more careers is still well within the wheelhouse of where we are as individuals, right? So I kind of say to myself, BroadBranch is such an exciting next space. And also, who knows what I'll do next? Maybe a baker or a farmer.
Exactly.
Keeping that open to kind of say we can be anything that we want to be. And I mean, this sounds really cheesy and sentimental, but I have two young daughters who are 7 and 9. And they're constantly saying, like, okay, mommy, I want to be a ballerina when I grow up.
Yes.
My older daughter wants to be a zookeeper training elephants because elephants are her favorite animal. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But you know what? You can have multiple careers.
Yes.
You don't have to just land on one thing. And I remember when I was a kid growing up, my parents always were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I think it's okay to say, I don't know what I want to be, but taking life experiences and using them to inform and build and grow you as a person is such an important part of that process. And I think all of us are just learning how to sort of do that. So I think that's such an important part of recognizing, especially kind of thinking about your talent and hiring question, like how do we grow these individuals that we're hiring into kind of the next generation of leaders?
Exactly. Which makes leadership as extraordinary for those who take on that mantle, right? You foresee the future. So love that you connected that. Thank you, Courtney. What is one piece of advice you would give to leaders looking to build a legacy from a firm like BroadBranch?
What a great question. I think I would say it's about sticking with it. Things that are really worth it rarely come quickly.
Very true.
And I think in this age of like instant gratification and digital tools and technology at our fingertips all the time, we are constantly given, dopamine hits of different things that allow us to say, oh, wow, well, like maybe I could build a business tomorrow and become, an entrepreneur in this, or maybe I can become a social media influencer and do this, that, or the other. But at the end of the day, I think things that are really worth it take time. And I've really had to learn this in my personal life as well as professional life, because I would not say that patience is my strongest quality. I think my colleagues and certainly my spouse would certainly agree.
Which I met him, so that he is very patient.
But so that applies in my work life too, right? Clients don't become clients after one meeting, right? People don't trust you after one interaction. Friends rarely become close friends after one chat. And so I think it's about building that rapport and that relationship, and it takes time. And time is such a luxury for sure. But I think if we step back and look at the arc of time, right? If I had imagined where I would be now, 8 years ago, when I first took the leap of faith to join BroadBranch, I couldn't have possibly imagined what that would look like. I couldn't have possibly imagined the people that I would be exposed to, the opportunities, the challenges as well, right? Because there's always challenges.
True.
But I think that's really the thread that matters in my mind. And so I would say for aspiring leaders, for young leaders, anyone kind of looking to build that legacy, give it time. Don't force it into a 1-year box or a 2-year box. And sometimes opportunities present themselves that you could have never possibly imagined before. And sometimes it's about embracing those. Certainly, me and my path to BroadBranch are a perfect testament to that. If I had stuck with USAID now, well, besides the fact that I would be probably unemployed, I
Yes.
probably would be at a very different place in life. But sometimes it's just about kind of letting those opportunities come and stepping back a little bit.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Courtney. I had goosebumps as you're talking, by the way,
Oh,
especially when you talked about time and giving it time, even with your personal life. This is a huge lesson for all of us. Nothing great comes quickly. It takes time to really build rapport. And I think you're a testament of that, both personal and professional life. So I guess I would like to know if your clients would walk away remembering one thing about working with Broad Branch, what would you hope it would be?
mhm. What a good question. I think I would say that it's not just about the insights that we deliver, it's about being customer centric and really understanding what it is that they're trying to do and accomplish. And so often we get clients who are like this: Courtney, I have this thing that I'm trying to do. I need you to run the diligence on this potential acquisition target and tell me what I need to know. Or, hey, I have these 5 questions. Can you ask this of, our competitors or our customers? And so often I want to say, take a step back with me for a minute, zoom out and give me a little bit of perspective on what you're trying to accomplish. Kind of like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What does that look like?
Mhm.
And when I have a better understanding of what they're trying to do, so often the questions evolve,
Right.
right? The level of inquiry, where we go with that is really different than just saying, I need you to do 20 interviews in this space, or I need you to evaluate this entity or that entity. So I think that zoom out a little bit and give us a little bit more perspective is so meaningful. And I take also kind of that human centric approach, right? You might encounter someone who's having a bad day and you're like, woo, they're really in a mood. Well, you have no idea what's going on with
Right.
them. And so kind of taking the judgment out of what does this actually look like and who are they as a person? What are they trying to accomplish? That zoom out really gives us so much more perspective to be able to say, maybe we should focus here. Maybe in the process of doing this work, we can also help you identify new opportunities, for example. So I think that's a really meaningful way to kind of frame how to think about utilizing external third parties as well. So often it's kind of very quid pro quo, very transactional approach. And the more I learn, the more I say, usually more is more. Communication, right? Creating those communication channels and that kind of collaborative dynamic almost always yields a better result, right? And so that's, I think, what I would also say to anyone looking to engage kind of a consulting service. What is it that you're really trying to accomplish? Zoom out. What do you want to be when you grow up? Kind of a, and how do you then help all of those parties that are trying to support that mission drive there, right? And it ends up being kind of a really incredible goal setting visioning exercise where it's like, help us better understand how to help you. And as
Hmm.
we understand what you're trying to do, it becomes much less I have a need, you're going to deliver it for me, and instead a collaboration where these parties can say, how do we build a partnership whereby we can serve as a trusted advisor to you, but also as a key collaborator in your process to help you get to the goals and outcomes you're really seeking. And
Exactly.
again, it rarely comes quickly.
Yeah.
So it might be, there might be a very specific problem space that we're answering, but it might be that over the course of the work we're doing in a certain industry, we actually learn something that can be really meaningful to them that they might not have identified previously.
Exactly. Exactly. Well said. Thank you so much, Courtney. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, learning more about you, learning more about your new adventure, which is with Broad Branch. And we're super excited for you guys in the future and what you will accomplish. Any last words you would like to share with our audience before we close? And what is the best way people can reach out to you or your organization if they're interested in learning more?
I guess I would just say, from a closing thought standpoint, right, that people-centric approach really matters. That sort of uncovering insights through external, market work and research really matters. So don't be afraid to say, I don't know everything. I think that's been one of the biggest learnings for me with our clients. Clients say, yeah, well, we know all of this already. And I think it's scary to say, I don't know everything about everything, so
Right.
I might need some help.
Right.
But certainly, as I've gotten older and recognized that I don't know what I don't know, it's so much better to say, help me
Mhm.
figure this out, because I don't know all the answers. And sometimes that takes a little bit of humility. So I would say, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to say, I don't know everything in this space, even if you think you should. Um, in terms of reaching out to us, www.broadbranchadvisors.com is our website. You can follow us on LinkedIn, on all of the other social media channels. And, if we can be helpful, feel free to reach out. I'm at Courtney Matson here, BroadBranch Advisors. So thank you so much for having me, Rejoice. It's been such a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been a wonderful experience, and we look forward to learning more about your future adventures. For everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. Please make sure you follow us and listen to all of our recordings online. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye bye.